What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of DM in the PM. My name's Tom Quinn, resident dungeon master here at Modern Myth, and recently I came across this video by Ginny D, and it really got me thinking about preparation and our relationship as DMs with the preparation we do to run these sessions. Now, in the video, she's kind of tackling some of the pitfalls around the age-old advice of don't over-prep. It's a great video, definitely worth checking out. And while I agree with, I think, the backbone of the video, it got me thinking about steering that conversation in a completely different direction. The crux of the video, I think, ultimately boils down to prep to your comfort level. And that is something I can completely agree with. But the question it raised for me is, how much control do we have over where the boundaries of our own comfort level lies? And that's really what gets me into the topic of today's video, which is to stop prepping altogether. Now, a couple of important caveats in starting out this conversation. One, am I suggesting that you should sit down every single week or every other week, whatever frequency you're sitting down at your own table, having done zero preparation and just absolutely wing everything? No, that is not what I'm suggesting. And two, am I suggesting, hey, all you new DMs out there, what you should do is throw out all of this awesome material, all these awesome resources at your disposal, and just start rattling it off the top of your head? No, I'm not suggesting that either. What I am suggesting is that running the game, just like playing, is a manifestation of a variety of skill sets. And those skill sets, just like any other, require practice in order to hone them, require repetition, require iteration in order to sharpen those into potent tools to use at our tables and in our own games. With that in mind, there's a variety of skill sets that we can insulate ourselves against the use of, or at least against the regular use of, through careful preparation. The skill set that comes to mind most readily when I'm thinking about this is narrative improvisation. And I do think it's important to subdivide improvisation into at least two major categories. One being character improvisation, the various mannerisms and responses, accents, what have you, that we are expressing at the table through NPCs and through other actors in the world we couldn't possibly have accounted for. There's just far too many interactions playing out at a table that there's a regular demand in these spaces for improvisation. And no amount of preparation will generally relieve you of this responsibility. Whereas narrative improvisation is a place that I think many DMs immediately feel themselves becoming uncomfortable. As soon as you find yourself in a space where you are expected to deliver an adventure hook, deliver a plot point, deliver a narrative thread that is compelling, entirely shot from the hip, that can be an overwhelming position to be in as a DM. And I think this is a great example of one of those spaces that good prep work can generally avoid. And while that might make for a better experience at the table, it does very little for you as a DM to develop a greater sense of comfort in that space. Now, while diving headlong into your long-form weekly campaign, having done zero prep, fully expecting to deliver snappy narrative beats right off the top of your head, completely improvised, probably sounds a bit intimidating and definitely ill-advised. The same can't be said for a space that you've created specifically to exercise these skills. Whether it's gathering up those regular weekly players and running a one-shot in which the understanding across the entire table is that nothing that's going to be presented at the table has been prepared, or finding a group of players who are excited to join the hobby of Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop RPGs. There are many environments in which it is far less intimidating to begin practicing these skills, only to be able to take the dividends of that practice when you find yourself in those rare instances at your regular table where your players have really pushed the bounds of your improvisational skills, and find yourself far more apt to engage and be creative in that space. It really is an excellent way to begin honing those tools and to begin to broaden those boundaries for what you feel is your comfortable level of preparation in the first place. Another consideration for operating in these no prep game spaces that is criminally under discussed is how awesome it is as a DM to be discovering those narrative beats right alongside your players. Try as we may as dungeon masters to remain unbiased with regard to the direction that our players are going to take as they unfold a narrative within our game space. The simple act of having prepared for some things and not for others has already begun to influence our preferential treatment of a course of action that would lead them towards something we have prepared for and are comfortable in running versus that which we'd be improvising entirely. To date, I've run 3 campaigns in this fashion, ranging from a couple sessions to about a dozen, and what I found is a unifying thread throughout all of them is how rapidly I became engaged in the unfolding narrative. And while I definitely found myself on occasion stumbling well outside of my comfort zone or delivering a narrative thread that wasn't as impactful as I would like it to be, these moments weren't failures. They were opportunities for me to exist in a space that we as DMs try so hard to avoid on many occasions. And in that space, analyze which tools worked really well for improvising narratives and which ones didn't work at all. And the biggest takeaway from operating within this no prep space is that, yeah, we should be prepping within the bounds of our own individual comfort levels. But also, perhaps we have more control over where we draw those boundaries. Thank you guys so much for joining me this time. Until next time, the world is yours.